fine. They probably won't be able to hear. You gotta be loud.
Hey guys!
No, that's. What are we doing today, Roz?
We're going to get some pumpkins, and then I'm going to show you how you can bake those pumpkins in multiple ways. I'm thinking pumpkin pie, roasted pumpkin seeds, and pumpkin milkshakes.
What the hell is a pumpkin milkshake?
A pumpkin milkshake is when you roast a pumpkin and you make the meat of the pumpkin very...
The meat?
The meat. The meat.
Why would you call it the meat? It's not an animal.
Well, but when you're carving the pumpkin, the stringy bits are the guts. So the outside should be the meat, right? And then there's the skin.
What's the matter with you? Where are we, Roz?
We're at the Hagens.
The Hagens?
The Hagens. Am I saying it wrong?
No, that's how it's pronounced. We're at the grocery store.
Oh, yeah. We're at the grocery store.
No one's gonna know what Hagens is. There's a dog in there?
There's a dog in there. He's looking at me like this.
That's pretty good.
That's pretty funny.
That's funny.
I'm thinking half.
I don't think we need more than that.
I think just 2 is good if they're that size.
Okay.
These ones are the good ones. Actually, no, these ones because they're medium. Should we do a green? Should we do Christmas?
Sure. Christmas. Yeah.
Christmas in the Northwest. Now we're in the kitchen. We have 2 pumpkins. This will provide a lot of pumpkin for our project. So, set oven to 425. Okay, next thing, cut into your pumpkins. Basically cut them in half or maybe in quarters. We'll see. This depends on how large it is. There. Okay, so these don't have a lot of seeds, so we're not going to have an incredible amount, but we're going to scoop out the guts, and then we're going to rub them with oil and salt them a little bit, and we're going to roast them on a pan. This is a pumpkin gut bowl. It's very large. And a large spoon. This is the largest one I have on hand. This is to get all the guts out.
Okay.
We're going to be doing this with all the pumpkins because we want to separate the seeds from the meat of the pumpkin. This is the skin and this is the guts, so what I don't know what else to call it. And just scoop. It's just like carving a pumpkin, just easier because you have a wide opening. And you want to put all your guts in your gut bowl. And don't worry too much about little stringies, just get most of it. It's all pumpkin. We'll be using these seeds to roast. We'll probably be putting Worcestershire sauce and green and red chili on them. And then we'll be roasting the pumpkins separately from the seeds. Okay, so we have gutted all of these pumpkins. I'm gonna cut them basically so they're in quarters. And that is totally optional. I just have a feeling that they'll roast quicker if they're in smaller pieces. So, like if you get a smaller pumpkin, and you don't get 15-pound pumpkins like I did, then you probably don't have to do this. There. All also unnecessary. You don't need to cut off the stems, only if you want to. Okay, so we will grab roasting pans. Take some olive oil. This is what you're going to do if you roast any vegetable ever. You're going to put the oven to 400 to 425 degrees, and you're going to use olive oil and salt, and pepper is optional. We're not going to use pepper on this one. And then roast your vegetables until they are soft with a fork. Until the fork goes in easily. That is every vegetable that you will ever roast. Super easy. So you're going to pour some olive oil into your hand, and you're going to rub it on the pumpkin, on the meat of the pumpkin. It's not a big deal. A little bit of salt. Okay, now turn them over. Probably going to be 45 minutes. I'll tell you when it's done. But the way you can tell, and this goes for every roasted vegetable, is you take a fork and you stick it into the meat part, and it should go in very easily. So like
butter?
Yeah, pretty much like butter.
Like if you're sticking a fork in butter?
Yeah, like right now it's raw. It's difficult to get in there. It should go in really easily and all the way down. So now we're going to separate the seeds from the puke, or the guts. The seeds from the guts. So very easy. You just take the guts, take the seeds. So this is the second set of pumpkins. I don't think they're ready yet, but we're going to test them. So see, they're not ready because you can't put your fork in there easily. These have been in here for 40 minutes. They'll probably go about another 15-20. So maybe an hour. They are quite big. Okay, so these are ones that I took out of the oven like 20 minutes ago. The fork really goes in there easily. So now what I'm going to do with these roasted pumpkins is I'm going to scoop them out of their skins, and I'm going to scoop them out of their skins and into this bowl. And they should come off pretty easily. So easily that they just fall apart. So I couldn't find the stick blender, so we're going to use a food processor, and that's just fine.
And alternatively, they can use forks, right?
Yes.
If they have neither.
That is the more labor-intensive way to do this. It's getting nice and smooth now. Yeah, look at that. Isn't that nice? So you'll take this and we can put spices and sugar and stuff in it for the pies, and then we'll put spices in this and mix it with ice cream for shakes. Next we're going to make our pumpkin pie, which first requires making a pie dough. It's a very simple recipe. You're going to need a stick of butter, which is a half cup of butter. You can also use Crisco. Crisco is a good alternative. You're going to need a cup of flour and about a half teaspoon of salt, and you're going to put that in the bowl first. I recommend sifting if you can, because it just helps with the texture, but I don't have an ability to sift right now. I don't have a sifter. So a cup of flour, and I don't measure. That's about how much salt you want. Half to a full teaspoon. And then you're going to cut up a stick of butter. This is a cup of butter. It's best to use frozen butter because it's easier to cut and it doesn't melt quickly. So I just keep a box of butter in the freezer for when I want to make pie dough. Now that we have our flour, our salt, and our butter in the bowl, we need to cut it in. This is the best way to cut the butter in, but you can also use like 2 forks and kind of do this motion. You can also use your hands and just squeeze the butter into the flour. You're going to cut the butter in until it's in very small chunks and it's hard to differentiate the butter from the flour. So you'll see as we go along how this changes. You want pea-sized pieces, so this is perfect. Now what you do with this is you're going to add about 6 tablespoons of cold water. I never actually measure this out, but I would recommend adding very small amounts at a time. Then you can't over add. So I'm just going to do little pours and stir with my fork. And you see it's starting to come together, but it's not there yet. There's still pieces of like actual just all flour, but it's starting to come together. That's about another tablespoon there. That is actually perfect, I would say. You want it wet enough to pick up everything, and if it feels too wet, that's totally okay, because when we roll it out, we're gonna cover the table in flour and cover our rolling pin in flour, and so it'll get more flour added to it. But you want it to form a shaggy ball like that. That's a great ball of dough. Now, we have our dough. We have our rolling pin. We have flour. You're going to want to flour your surface pretty generously. You don't want your dough to stick to your table because that gets messy really quickly. Your dough is feeling a little wet. Just cover it in flour to be safe. And then flour your pin. And then start rolling. And you want to roll in every direction. We have the dough in the pie plate, and we have all this extra dough hanging off the sides. What you're going to do is you're going to take a knife and you're going to run your fingers underneath so your fingertips are touching this and the dough is hanging, and you want to cut the dough. You can't really see it because my fingers, but at this line, this first knuckle. So I'm going to cut here. And just cut lightly. Obviously don't cut your fingers. This cuts really easily. Now what you do with this rough crust is this is the way I make a crust. I think it's the most beautiful way. There are definitely a lot of different ways. You can cut off the crust here and imprint with a fork. You can fold in this way. You can do pretty imprints where you cut out you use this extra and you make leaf shapes and you put it on there. My personal favorite is you take the dough, you fold it under, and then you pinch like that. So then you go to the next one, you fold it under and you pinch. So now that we've made this pie crust, we're ready to make the filling. There are a lot of recipes for pumpkin pie that require pre-baking the pie shell. So what you would do is you preheat the oven to 425 while you're making this, and then pop this in for like 5 to 10 minutes. You don't want to fully bake it. You just want to make it a little hardened because the filling is a liquid as opposed to like an apple pie that's more chunky. This recipe that I follow is very simple. It's the Libby's recipe, which is the recipe you find on the cans of pumpkin. Obviously, we're not using canned pumpkin, but it's a good recipe, and it actually does not require pre-baking. What we're gonna need is 3/4 cup white sugar. You can definitely reduce this if you want. I generally reduce. 1 teaspoon ground cinnamon, 1/2 teaspoon ginger, 1/4 teaspoon of cloves, 2 eggs, mix. We have this mixture. We're going to add evaporated milk. You want 12 ounces of evaporated milk, not sweetened condensed milk. You want evaporated milk. Make a hole in both sides. You can pour it out. That's a trick. Make a hole here, make a hole here. It pours out really easily. It doesn't do that if you just do one hole. Because we don't have this in a can, we're going to weigh out 15 ounces of your pureed, lovely, homemade pumpkin. Boom, 15 and 1/8. So now we're going to pour this into our pie dish. Now you have a pie that is ready to bake. Now your pie is ready to pop into the oven. And this one we will time. This one's a little tricky. So you're going to bake it for 15 minutes at 425 degrees. Then you're going to bake it at 350 degrees for 40 to 50 minutes. So it's really to get the initial shock of heat, pretty much. And then after this timer goes off, you really want to use that time to set the custard. 50 minutes since I put this in. I turn off the oven. The way you can tell if a pie is ready, it is still jiggly, but the way you can tell if a pie is ready is if you put a knife in and it comes out clean. So if there were still chunks, I would not think that it's ready. This is from when it splashed over the side a little. It just makes it look rustic. So now that you've taken it out of the oven, you cannot cut right into it. I would not, even if you were able to cut into it, I wouldn't recommend eating it warm because it's kind of a weird taste. You want this to cool completely. This is a cool pie, not a hot pie. So while this is cooling, we're gonna make homemade whipped cream. You want to start with putting your blender bowl in the freezer for like an hour. You can do it overnight too. All you need for this is heavy whipping cream and powdered sugar. So we have our frozen bowl and we have our whisk attachment. Start by pouring some, I'd say a cup. Just pour some in there, about a tablespoon. Mix it on a high speed so it whips. So now I'm going to teach you how to roast pumpkin seeds. You may remember that when we started roasting the pumpkin, we scooped out the guts and we set them aside. As you can see, I have now separated the seeds from the guts. There's a couple like pieces of gut still in there, but really it's gonna bake down and it doesn't matter. Just make sure it's not, oh, that's a big one. Just give it a cursory swipe. So you're going to put it in a colander and you're going to rinse it so the slime kind of gets off. I have 2 flavors that I'm going to do today. One is One is Worcestershire sauce and green chili, and one is Worcestershire sauce and red chili. So you can roast these with olive oil, but you can also use egg white, which sounds really weird, but it's really helpful with making the seasoning stick to the seeds instead of just coming off on the pan and having flavorless pumpkin seeds. So that's what we're gonna do today. So we have parchment paper, so your seasonings don't crust up the pan and make it impossible to wash later. Now we're gonna separate the egg white from the yolk. So use a cup, and we're gonna break it apart gently and not let the yolk fall. And you're going to gently move it from side to side, letting the yolk or letting the white drain off. I'm just going to divide these in half, and this is a good opportunity. If you see any big pieces of gut, just pick that out of there. Basically what you do is you just pour your ingredients over your seeds, and then you mix them. So I don't really measure. I know that's a fault, but basically judge yourself how spicy. My hands are wet, so basically just judge yourself how much seasoning you want. It's totally fine to just do like olive oil and salt and pepper and not do anything spicy or fancy. Those are good. Those are really good. You want some of the little pieces and you want some of the juice.
Little baby can't open a can.
Hold on, yeah, I can.
Oh man, it really doesn't want to.
I know, you didn't believe me.
Holy shit.
I don't think it's like that.
Yeah.
I think it's where you tap it like directly.
No, you do it sideways to get it started.
It hurts my hand.
Okay, let me do it then.
No!
Give it to me.
Oh. Why are you being impatient?
Of course I'm impatient. I want to go play Animal Crossing.
Ah!
There
Got
we
it. You just go woo with your hand. Boom. So actually, maybe 2 spoonfuls. Or 1.5. Here. And here.
And they're going in at what temperature?
425, baby.
For how long?
They're probably going to go in for 25 minutes, but you should check them every 5 to 10 minutes and scoop them and move them around, because you don't want your seeds to just sit in one spot the whole time, because they'll just burn into one spot. You want them to get evenly baked. So, it's been like 10 minutes. I probably should have moved them around sooner, but you see they're starting to stick on the paper, so it's a good idea to move them. But they're starting to get there. So the seeds are done. Look how nice and brown they are. They're very good. They're very hot though. Yeah. Very tasty. Could even have been spicier, but I was being cautious. What do you think? Good?
Yummy.
Pumpkin milkshakes are super simple. You need a blender, vanilla ice cream, and pumpkin. You like it?
I think it needs more ice cream.
More ice cream?
I think if you want even more ice cream.
Hey everyone, this is Carl. I'm realizing while editing this that we totally forgot to film an outro, so thanks for watching.